Zon'ozz is a tennis master, and if you want to beat him, you'll need to brush up on your return. Trust me, this guy is focused. Forearm, backhand, whatever you decide to go for, make sure you get it right. The ball is in your court. Zon'ozz is a two-phase repeating fight. Phase 1 is about execution, while Phase 2 is an intense burn and healing phase. When this video and guide were made, Zon'ozz had around 127 million HP and spawned no killable adds. You'll want to bring 1 tank, 5 to 7 healers, and a balanced mix of DPS. We'll remind you that this video and guide were created during the PTR, and if the fight changes significantly when it goes live, we will create a new guide to reflect this. Thank you. Zon'ozz has 3 basic spells and 1 very unique mechanic. For starters, he will gain the Focus Anger buff at the start of the fight. This increases his physical damage done and attack speed by 10% and stacks over time. Periodically during Phase 1, he will use Psychic Drain. This is a frontal cone attack that deals high shadow damage and heals him. Throughout Phase 1, the boss will debuff random players with Disrupting Shadows. This debuff ticks for mild shadow damage every few seconds, but can be dispelled. Upon being dispelled, it will deal moderate shadow damage to the afflicted player and knock them back. Shortly into the fight, Zon'ozz will spawn a large purple sphere called Void of the Unmaking. This is the primary mechanic of the encounter. This sphere cannot be killed, but can be targeted. If the sphere collides with the player, it will cause Void Diffusion. This deals very high shadow damage to the target that splits evenly with all nearby players. Additionally, the sphere will ricochet off its target in the opposite direction and become immune to collision for a few seconds. If the sphere is allowed to reach the outside wall of the room, it will deal very high fire damage to all players and knock the raid into the air. Alternatively, if the sphere hits the boss, Zon'ozz will become weakened and take 5% increased damage for each time it bounces between players. He will also lose all stacks of Focus Anger and awaken the Maw of Gorath. During this period, Black Blood of Gorath will fill the room and deal high shadow damage to all players every second. After 30 seconds have passed, the phase will end and the fight repeats. Begin the fight with the correct positioning. Have range stack in one group at the outer edge of the pool. Tank the boss near the middle of the room with melee on his back. There should be around 20 to 30 yards between the range group and the melee group, but the tank should face the boss towards the range group until the first void ball spawns. This will cause the void to spawn in the range group and immediately begin moving toward the melee. Once it is spawned, the tank should flip the boss around and face him towards the back of the room. If done correctly, the void ball will bounce back and forth between the melee and range stacks. Place 3 healers in the melee stack to heal the tank and melee, and place 3 healers in the range stack to keep ranged alive. Dispels must be timed correctly during this phase, since dispelling a player will deal high shadow damage to them and knock them back. If the player is knocked back too far, it could cause problems with damage splits from the Void Diffusion. Try to dispel players who are close to top or won't be taking Void Diffusion soon. It may be helpful to assign just one player to dispel so that it cannot be interfered with too much. This also frees up other healers to focus solely on keeping players top or close to top. Eventually, the raid will need to allow the void to hit Zon'ozz. If not, his damage will scale too high and he will become untankable. Call out before the boss needs to be hit to allow melee time to run out. It is important that all of melee clear away from behind the boss so the void can make sure to collide with Zon'ozz. This will begin Phase 2. Immediately when Phase 2 begins, the raid should stack on top of the boss. DPS should go all out as he can take significantly increased damage depending on the time the raid spent in Phase 1. Healers will need to work hard at keeping players up since the raid damage can skyrocket here. Some raids may opt to use a cooldown rotation to ease healing, but since your raid will likely see this phase a few times before killing the boss, make sure not to blow all of your raid cooldowns on the first Phase 2. Survive for 30 seconds and Zon'ozz will refocus his anger and Phase 1 will begin again. Reposition properly and make sure to stabilize the raid for the start of the next Phase 1. Much of the difficulty of this fight will be properly bouncing the void back and forth and healing during Phase 2. Once the raid has accomplished both of these tasks, a kill should follow shortly. If you enjoyed this guide or found it helpful, Bookmark us at LearntoRaid.com, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitch TV and Twitter. As always, we hope that this guide was helpful, and we'll see you at the next boss.
I wasn't feeling so good. I just didn't feel like playing anymore. So I went home, and I got all comfy and cozy and all scrunched up in front of my phonograph.